Hey guys, it's Jim Halterman from TV Guide Magazine. We're here today with some stars of Better Call Saul, Mr. Tony Dalton and Michael Mando. Hi guys.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, before we get started though, I want to talk about the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. They have a COVID-19 Emergency Assistance Fund. This fund is helping to support actors who are currently out of work due to all the closed film and television productions right now. It's helping people pay their expenses and rent and mortgages and utilities. So if you can donate anything, please do so. It would help a lot of people out. And if you're watching this and you need a little help, please reach out to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Thank you. But right now we're going to dig into Better Call Saul. You guys, I rewatched the finale last night, and even though I knew what was going to happen because I'd seen it, I was so tense and so just freaked out about the whole thing. What was it like for each of you when you read that script, knowing possibly what was coming? I don't know if Vince and Peter tell you too much ahead of time, but Michael, I'll start with you. What was going through your head when you first got that script?
I think in that particular instance, they don't usually tell us. Usually we're pretty, we get the scripts and we cold read them. In that particular instance, I think Peter called and sort of gave us a heads up and says there's all this crazy stuff going on and all that stuff. I was just blown away by the season as a whole. I thought the writers, they have a very unique way of trusting the story and laying the bricks very, very carefully. Most shows are going to throw the kitchen sink at it in the first season, and these guys lay their bricks very, very slowly. It's kind of like an elastic going backwards. And this season, I felt they let go of the elastic, and this amazing momentum happened all the way to the finale.
Tony, how about with you when you got the script and you saw what we're going to be doing in this episode?
Oh man, it was great. I mean, first of all, Jim, thanks for having me on the show, Mike.
Yeah.
Man, Michael, I love you, Michael.
I love you, Tony. I know, man.
I love you, my friend. Yeah, it was great, man. You like Mike says, they don't tell you shit until you show up there, and it's like, what? You never know when you're gonna die, and it ended up being quite the opposite, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, you both had a lot of just emotional work to do, but then especially you, Tony, had a lot of physical work as far as the big shootout and everything at the end. We're going to talk like people have seen the episode. If you guys have not seen the finale, go watch it now, then come back and talk to us.
That's where the aliens show up at the very end. And
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But Tony, I loved how you played Lalo because he's a villain, but I really like him, which I feel a little guilty about sometimes. I'm like, I know he's not a good guy, but I want to know how you approach playing him, because I feel like there's so many layers to him that even just calling him a villain might be selling him short. But can you talk about how you approach playing him?
Yeah, well, I mean, I sort of kind of did a little bit of research of everything that I'd seen in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and seeing how, what kind of character was missing, what hadn't been sort of explored. And I figured, this guy who has a little bit of charm, this sort of dapper different kind of narco, not the same, cliche narcos that have been shown through years and years of television and everything, doing something that maybe nobody had seen before, guy who's a little more happy, does more carefree, he doesn't really care. Like, one of the things that is always like to the back of my mind with Lalo is that Lalo doesn't care, These guys are always very close to death. They owe people on other people, they have enemies. They can be shot in the back of the head in a nightclub or a bottle or a knife. So they live like this. So a guy who's coming up to Albuquerque to check out on the family business doesn't care, until the end where it's like, oh, now he's pissed, Yeah,
it's scary. Michael, talk about Nacho in the season. I mean, I'm probably more worried about Nacho than anybody else on the show, partly because he's not in Breaking Bad, so I'm always worried what his future holds. But
yeah,
in the finale in particular, he has to keep so much underneath the surface, but you play it really well because you feel the tension. Approach playing that, do you just rely on the script, or do you have to really think about how to do that so you're not giving way too much to the other people around you?
I think that for me, the core of the character is the love he has for his father. That to me is so essential. And it's funny, I think it's what grounds the character, and it's what drives everything. It's kind of in a very interesting way. It's a story of redemption, and it's a story about love and what we're willing to do for love. And I think what's beautiful about it is that he's willing to die. He knows at every corner that he can die, and he can choose not to die and easily, shake Don Eladio's hand, get a promotion, be rich, and be the next Scarface and die gloriously being shot by bullets. But he chooses that he's willing to sacrifice all of the things that he thought he wanted for the love of somebody that he considered to be very pure and noble.
Yeah. Now talk about working with each other, because there's so many dynamics going on. And of course, Nacho can't fully reveal what's going on in his head.
Right.
But do you think they there's a line in the finale where Lalo says, "I see you." And I'm just wondering, that line felt like that means so many different things. But do you think these characters do see each other when we get to the finale?
I think playing Nacho, and that's a discussion I had with Peter and Vince. I think he's dealt with the Salamanca family as a whole for a very, very long time. And he knows that deep down they would chew him up and spit him out to their convenience. So I think he's been through that sort of grooming process where you're brought in to think that you have some real value. And I think it's shown in the way, Lalo would rather, for example, hire this lawyer that he's never met to go get $7 million and not even take a chance on Nacho at that point, which demonstrates a lot. I mean, if you want to talk about loyalty in that moment, you realize like, okay, that's what I represent to you and the family. And in revenge too, I don't think Nacho wants to be a part of it anyway. So it's kind of like a dichotomy. It's like a dead end anyway. It's gonna end in not such diplomatic terms.
Yeah. And Tony, how do you think Lalo sees Nacho? Does he just see him as just a tool, or is he endeared to him at all? I mean, before the events of the finale, how does he see him? Because after the finale, of course, he's going to look at him a whole different way.
He's going to buy me gifts and flowers and stuff.
Yeah, well, I think he likes him, I really do. I think that Lalo likes Nacho. He's just, he's kind of following the rules of how things go. And he says, at the end, he's going to set him up to be the guy who's in charge and kind of, sort of, I think that the thing is that these guys are kind of, yes, they're well, at least my guy. When I say my guy, I mean Lalo. Is like they're heartless, I mean, it's a business, and it's like, I'll help him do this. I'm not going to give him $7 million to cross around the desert, but I'll get him to be, in charge of certain things. And like Lalo doesn't know that Nacho doesn't want to be in there. Lalo thinks that everybody would want to be there, that he's doing him a favor. So it's kind of like he's oblivious to Nacho's world. He just thinks that, oh well, if you're working in the cartel, you're probably going to want to find your way back. And look, you're going to be lucky because you're going to be with Mr. Eladio, and he's going to tell you. And it's like, not just like, I don't give a shit about that stuff,
Do you think Lalo trusts anybody, or is trust not even something that you think about in this business that he's in?
Yeah, I think he trusts his family. That's why the logo is Familia es todo, and that's it.
Yeah, okay. Michael, do you think Nacho, does he trust people, especially in this world? He knows what this world is.
Well, I think there's an underlying theme in Better Call Saul, which is, I think, to me, what I find most fascinating and what I love the most about the writing is that there is this underground sense of morality. Mike is a really good sort of beacon for that, especially for Nacho, which is why he's able to reason with Mike in a way that he can't reason with Gus Fring or Lalo Salamanca or Hector or Tuco. Is that there is this underlying sense of moral justice. And I think to me, the dichotomy of the show is, none of us are lawful. None of the characters obey the law. None of us really believe in the law. But some of us believe in a certain kind of morality that is sort of universal. For example, you don't threaten somebody's daughter, right? When the Salamancas go and they point their finger at the daughter of Jonathan Banks, that's something that you don't do. The Salamancas, at least from the eyes of Nacho, are willing to kill anybody for the benefit of their very small group, which to the eyes of, for example, Mike Ehrmantraut and Nacho, as we can tell from the introduction of the character in season 1, is something that is that is not right, regardless of the criminal code. And I think that's the dichotomy that Nacho's kind of caught in. He wants to live with a kind of moral code, but is surrounded by people like Tuco, who's willing to just blow a person that was a confidant out for his gain or his instinct or whatever. So that's really the dichotomy to me of the show and the themes.
Yeah, I love it. The episode before this, when Lalo goes to see Jimmy and Kim, I feel like the whole scene in their apartment, to me, felt like a play, because it was such just dialogue, and it was also so tense, and so much was happening. But I don't think I'd seen a scene with those three characters together yet. If I'm right, I think that's right. They hadn't all been together, right?
Yeah, no.
So
that was the first time the three of us were together.
I loved it so much. I watched it like 3 times, just those scenes, because they're so cool. But how was that working with them in that regard? Because you're in their space, they're not in your space, and I just felt like there were so many layers going on. Can you just talk about working with Bob and with Ray?
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Tom Schnauz, who wrote and directed that one too, also because, like you said, he made the whole monster in the house thing going on there. That's their sacred place, that house, that apartment, and Lalo showing up there is kind of like what? But yeah, I mean, we rehearsed it a couple days before, and we showed up there, and I mean, a lot of people don't get to work with Ray because she's sort of like the holy grail of Better Call Saul. She's kind of on the good guy's side. But so getting to do a scene there with Ray, also the way that scene played out, where I sort of come in with all the intentions that you don't know if he's going to kill her or not, and then she ends up sticking up for him and saving the day, which was great. And it's great. I mean, look, everybody that's on this show is super professional. I mean, everybody's like on the top of their game. The person who I work with the most is Mike, and just working with Mike is great. He's always brings everything to the table. He's always prepared. He always brings ideas, and like the depth of the character. And that's the kind of people you're gonna work with, because it only makes you look better. I'm just a new guy here. Those are the guys who've been carrying this show on their shoulders for the past 4 seasons.
Yeah. Tony, did go ahead, Michael.
I have to come into that. I think. I have to say, Tony, just to give back praise, because that's what you do when someone's so wonderful. I think you've really came in, and it feels like you've been there forever, and you've really elevated the stakes of the whole show the way Lalo should. And I think you brought in something that wasn't in the script too. You brought in a lot of charm to the character, and it made it a lot of fun. So I think I want to repay that compliment and say, we're really lucky to have you, and you brought in so much.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. I love you, man.
I love you more, brother.
Tony, did you feel any pressure coming into the show? Because Lalo, people heard that name in season 4, and Breaking Bad people were like, wait, they're saying his name. He's coming. But did you personally feel pressure to make sure you lived up to the name and the legend, or at least what people thought Lalo would be?
No, not even a little bit. Not even close. It could have been Lalo, and then in the next episode they kill Lalo, and that's it. So you don't know how big this is until it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And once you're already in it and you start reading the episodes, you're like, oh, okay, so I guess Lalo's going to be in this more, because it could have been just Lalo, the accountant, he's gone now, and that's it. So yeah. I didn't really know what I was getting into, to be honest with you. I really did not.
I think Michael's right. I think you brought so much to the role, because he isn't just another villain. He's not just another Salamanca. Like, there is something unique there. So I know as a viewer, I appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Michael, since you've been with the show from the beginning, did you foresee any of this journey? Even if you know what Breaking Bad is, we didn't know during season 1. We still don't really know how we get, how those two shows kind of meet up. But can you talk about like that first season and what you were just thinking about? Like, what's this world I'm in, and who is this character? What were those early days like?
Absolutely not. To be honest with you, when I came in season 1, I thought I was going to be killed around season 2. I came in and my character, they had told me, I remember we were shooting in the desert, and one of the producers that was there at the time came up to me and says, man, the things you end up doing at the end of the season are really like sort of very violent and atrocious. And I thought, okay, so this guy ends up doing something really bad really soon. And I think what happened is within the first 3 episodes, they felt there was a dynamic with Nacho that was different than what they had anticipated. But on the other end, I think what also kind of rotated things in a very big way was that they didn't anticipate that there would be on screen a kind of hostility between Michael McKean and Bob Odenkirk. And once they discovered that sort of kind of underlying jealousy that Chuck had towards Jimmy, they decided to sort of switch whatever plan they had, which I wasn't really aware of. And that put sort of Nacho on the back burner. And what happened with Nacho was he kind of became very peripheral, and he'd kind of show up and disappear and show up and disappear. And as he'd show up and disappear, I felt like his whole arc would change. You know, I wasn't really sure exactly what his whole series arc would be. I thought it was going to be a guy who would one day sit with Don Eladio and be extremely excited about it. And you feel like, wow, this is it. I've made it to the top of the cartel. It's so interesting because it ends up being that, but it's the complete 100% opposite of what he wants, which is even more interesting. And just it being a redemption story, again, is something that I relish and take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, because I remember talking to you probably in season 2. I came to set, and even then I still didn't know a lot about Nacho. We knew about his relationship with his family and that, but there's so much more to know that I feel like they've really filled in a lot of those gaps the last season.
Right.
I love as a viewer because even though I cover the show for work, this is a show I watch for myself.
Oh, great. So. Well, we're happy to hear that. Thank you.
Definitely. What kind of conversations do you have with Peter and Vince? Do they want to hear what you guys want to see in the role and where you'd like to see them go? Or is it a little more like, hey, just trust us and we're going to take you on a ride and just go with it? What are those conversations like? Tony, I'll start with you. What did you talk about with them about Lalo?
Nothing, man. They don't tell you anything. True. They don't tell you anything. You have to figure it out on your own.
Okay, Michael, do you feel the same way? Is that kind of how it is?
Yeah, it is that way. They don't tell you anything. But it's funny. I once asked Jonathan Banks that question when we were starting to shoot, and he said to me, I don't want to know. I want to be surprised, and I trust these guys. And that's, I think, the attitude that a lot of us take is we just say, we know these guys are like among the best writers in the business. We know they're busting their heads open for 7-8 months before we show up. So there's a part of it that's trusting, and it's like a roller coaster ride. It's almost more fun when you don't know when it's going to turn.
Okay. Now,
that's also very true because let me say something like that.
Yeah.
As a character development, if you don't know where the character's going, like in life, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or you don't know who's going to cross your path. It's good to be surprised to where you're going. And like Mike says, it's Peter and it's Vince and it's all these guys who are, the best of the best, period. And you're in good hands. It's not like, oh shit, what are these guys going to come up with? It's like, whatever it is, it's going to be pretty good. So just sit back and relax.
Okay, well, so let's go back to the finale because big stuff went on at the end of the finale. Tony, first of all, how was it to shoot a lot of that? Because it was very physical. You're going down tunnels and shooting up and everything. Was that an easy day for you, or is that a complicated day because there is choreography and you have to, work with the other actors and that? How was that for you to shoot some of those scenes in the house?
No, that's fine, man. I mean, I'm not really killing anybody.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, okay, here's the fake gun, shoot it at that guy and act like you killed him. I mean, when is that not a good idea? Here's a little tunnel, jump in there and go through it. When it's hard is when you sit down and do the long scenes, like the one that Mike did with this Stephen Bauer, or the one that I did with Ray at jail, where there's a lot of different emotions going and, you got to be on it. But doing the action scenes that's like if you were playing cowboys and Indians as a child, Yeah.
Michael, when you have something more physical to do, is that as challenging as just a scene where you're just sitting across from, like you said, Stephen Bauer, or even when you're sitting across Tony and just having a conversation? Are those scenes just as hard?
I think it all depends on the context. You know, like, for example, there's a scene in season 4 where Nacho gets shot. And there's so much underlying sort of emotion because you don't know where the bullet is going to go. You don't know if those guys are going to purposely miss. Yeah. You don't know if you're going to be left out in the desert and die. Or the scene where Nacho has to kind of make a decision and go back and kill for the first time in order to show the Salamanca twins that he's with them. And those scenes are a little more, I wouldn't say difficult, but they're challenging because you don't want to get caught in the sort of, you don't want to get caught in the end result of the scene where you don't die and play that scene with that sense. You want to play that scene truly with the vulnerability of the character in that moment and understand that this I might not make it out of this. So I think all of them are challenging in their own rights, you know, I think in a way. But I totally echo as well Tony's sentiments. You know, in certain contexts, it is fun and it is like Cowboy and Indians, and you are like, man, that's cool. I get to jump over that car and, like, you know, dodge this bullet, and that could be really fun too.
Okay, so I know we're in this holding pattern when you guys are going to get back to work to shoot the final season. But Tony, I kind of answer this, but what's on Lalo's mind at the start of the next season?
Whatever Vincent Peters says is on his mind, man. I mean, I'm not going to be the guy who tells you what. I have no idea. These guys are writing it. They're our gods. They decide where we're going, and we play along with it, man. You know. I'm
gonna just throw it out there. I think he might have revenge on his mind. I'm just gonna say
maybe,
a little bit.
He didn't seem too happy at the end.
And Michael, what's going through Nacho's mind?
I really don't know. I can tell you that I felt towards the end of the season that the character of Nacho, I felt like something in him broke. I felt there was something in him broke, but in a strange way, I felt it broken back into place. Mm. And I feel when he gets out of that gate, there was just a sense for me that there was a change in the character. I think he becomes a man in that moment. I think he was always sort of the young guy looking up to these guys who had, you know, twice as much experience as he has. But I think in that particular moment, he realizes that he's now a man. And he's got to stand up on his own 2 feet and live and die by the sword. Okay.
Well, I can't wait to see whatever is coming next. Hopefully you guys will get to shoot sooner than later. But thanks for chatting with me about it. I'm such a fan of the show. Yeah, fan of both of you guys. So congratulations.